The cold billionaire swore never to love another woman, but when the poor intern showed up, everything changed. Hi, my most beautiful, loyal and loving family. Welcome back. Every day without you felt incomplete, but now that we're here again, it feels like home. Your love, your loyalty, your support, it means more than words could ever say. Before we begin, let me offer you a short, heartfelt prayer. Dear God, today I lift up my family to you. Please bless their hearts with peace, their bodies with health, and their homes with joy. Let every worry fade, every tear be dried, and every silent prayer be answered. Surround them with protection and fill their souls with the kind of love that never ends. Amen. My family, if my stories have ever made you smile, touched your heart, or given you strength, please do just 4 simple things today. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a moment of love. Like this video if it made your heart feel seen. Comment something beautiful from your soul. It means everything to me. And share this with someone who needs a little light today. Together, we are more than a channel. We are a family built on love, loyalty, and real connection. Now take a deep breath. And let's begin this beautiful journey with gratitude, joy, and endless love. Ellington wasn't supposed to be in the private art gallery of Ravenscroft Tower, yet she couldn't resist when she found the door ajar. Among priceless masterpieces, she stood admiring a small Monet, unaware of the imposing figure watching from the doorway. Monet's use of light revolutionized how we perceive color in shadow. She whirled at the deep voice, instantly recognizing Thorne Ravenscroft, the notorious frost titan of Manhattan's business world. Tall, commanding, with piercing eyes that shifted between steel and pale blue, he studied her with unexpected intensity. Mr. Ravenscroft, she straightened her spine. I apologize for the intrusion. You're not authorized to be here. His tone was cool, but not angry. When presented with a collection that rivals the Met's Impressionist wing, she replied, refusing to be intimidated. Professional curiosity won over corporate policy. Something flickered in his expression, surprise that an intern would speak so boldly. Professional curiosity? You're an intern in marketing. I studied art history before financial reality redirected me. Their eyes locked, creating an unexpected current between them. Old passions die hard. He moved closer, his crisp white shirt revealing forearms corded with lean muscle and what appeared to be a tattoo. Unexpected on Manhattan's most controlled CEO. This Monet wasn't his best, Thorne said, stopping beside her. But the interplay between reflection and substance captured my attention. You understand Impressionism? She couldn't hide her surprise. Is that so difficult to believe? Coolness edged his tone. Most collectors at your level purchase art as investment or status. Zafira met his gaze directly. Few discuss light techniques and thematic elements. A ghost of a smile touched his lips before vanishing. You still haven't stated your name. Zafira Ellington, Marketing Department, 3rd floor. Zafira. He pronounced it carefully, as if tasting the syllables. Greek origin, the personification of the west wind. My mother taught classical studies at Columbia, she explained, surprised by his knowledge. She believed names shape destiny, and has yours. The unexpected personal question momentarily disarmed her. I haven't decided yet. Before leaving, Zafira noticed an unsigned abstract canvas, swirling blues and silvers depicting what might have been a storm across water, emotion barely contained within controlled brushstrokes. That one doesn't belong to any recognized master, she observed, but it's the most honest piece in the collection. Thorne's expression transformed, a tightening around his eyes, tension in his jaw. What makes you say that? Technical skill is evident in every piece here. But that one... She gestured toward the abstract. That was painted by someone who understood storm and stillness coexisting. someone who needed to express rather than impress. Something raw flickered across his carefully composed features. Vulnerability that disappeared instantly. "Your meeting, Miss Ellington." That evening, in her grandmother's Brooklyn brownstone, Zephyra described the encounter over dinner. He recognized genuine appreciation for the art, she concluded. It was unexpected in someone with his reputation. "People are rarely what reputation makes them," Iris Ellington replied, her silver hair framing a face where laughter had etched more lines than sorrow. "Especially those who've learned to guard themselves. You sound like you know him." "I know. His type. I worked for many of those old Manhattan families before you were born." Iris broke cornbread into her stew. "The wealthy wear masks, some to hide cruelty, others to protect what little humanity they've preserved." In her bedroom later, Zephyra found herself sketching from memory, the unattributed painting from Ravencroft's collection emerging beneath her pencil, storm and stillness, passion contained within discipline. Only after she set her sketchbook aside did she realize she'd begun incorporating another element, the haunting profile of a man whose carefully constructed winter might conceal unexpected fire beneath. Across the Brooklyn Bridge, Thorne Ravencroft stood before a door. He rarely opened in his immaculate penthouse. His private studio had remained largely untouched for 5 years, high windows coated with dust, sheets draped over canvases like shrouds over memories. Against his better judgment, he switched on the lights. The space smelled of linseed oil and potential, scents that transported him to another life when passion had flowed through his veins instead of calculated strategy. Then, before reconsidering, he closed the file and turned toward windows overlooking the sleeping city. Outside, the first delicate snowflakes of an early winter drifted past glass barriers, while inside, something long frozen stirred with unfamiliar warmth. Chapter 2. Brush strokes. Effective immediately, Zephyra Ellington is transferred to Special Projects Division, Corporate Art Acquisition Initiative. Report to Executive Floor, Suite 4402. Zephyra stared at the email, coffee growing cold in her hands. Victoria materialized beside her desk, expression oscillating between irritation and curiosity. "I just received notification of your transfer," she whispered. "What exactly happened in that gallery yesterday?" "Nothing that would warrant this," Zephyra replied, gathering her few personal items, a small succulent, a photograph of her grandmother, art criticism essays. 30 minutes later, she entered. Suite 4402, where warm wood paneling and floor-to-ceiling windows replaced the marketing department's sterile cubicles. Through a partially open door, she found Thorne standing before a glass table covered with photographs of artwork. "You seem surprised," he observed without looking up. "I'm trying to understand why the CEO would personally transfer a marketing associate to a division that typically requires an art history doctorate." Zephyra set her box of belongings on a nearby chair, especially after a 5-minute conversation about Monet. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Your resume indicates you're 3 credits shy of a double major in art history. Your thesis on emerging black female artists received departmental honors. And you identified an unsigned Rothko in our collection that our paid experts missed." Zephyra blinked in surprise. "That abstract was a Rothko?" "No," Thorne replied. "But the fact that you thought it might be demonstrates your eye for distinctive brushwork." He explained that she would be cataloging the existing collection and eventually identifying potential acquisitions. "Your perspective yesterday was refreshing because I wasn't trying to impress you?" The directness of her question caught him off guard, a momentary flash of genuine response crossing his features. "Precisely. The art world is filled with sycophants. I need someone who sees value beyond price tags and prestigious signatures." Mr. Ravencroft, While I appreciate the opportunity, this feels abrupt. People will talk. People always talk. Miss Ellington, the question is whether we grant them power to dictate our decisions. He slid several photographs toward her. Your first assignment is cataloguing the West Wing collection. It was clearly a dismissal, yet Zephyra remained rooted in place. May I ask a personal question? Surprise flickered across his expression. Few people dared such directness. You may ask. The unsigned painting, the one with storm and stillness, why keep it unlabeled among masterpieces? Tension gathered in his shoulders. When he finally spoke, his voice carried unexpected depth. Some works aren't meant for public appreciation. They're personal reminders. Of what? That control can contain passion without extinguishing it entirely. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as her. He straightened. Professional, distance reasserting itself. The cataloguing should take approximately 2 weeks. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Ravencroft. Thorn, he corrected as she reached the door. In special projects, we dispense with excessive formality. She turned back, a smile touching her lips. Then you should call me Zephyra. 2 weeks passed in revelatory immersion through Ravencroft's extensive collection. Thorn appeared unpredictably, sometimes observing silently, occasionally offering insights about specific acquisitions. Friday evening, as November darkness fell early, Zephyra lost track of time, analyzing a newly acquired abstract expressionist, a painting. The brushwork suggested emotional turbulence barely contained by technical discipline. Your assessment? Thorn's voice startled her. She hadn't heard him enter, yet there he stood, suit jacket discarded, tie loosened. The gallery lighting caught red-gold highlights in his dark hair, softening his severe features. Beautiful technical execution, but emotionally restrained. Zephyra gestured toward the canvas. The artist wanted to express chaos but couldn't, fully surrender control. Some might consider that tension the essence of compelling art. He moved beside her, close enough that she caught his cologne, sandalwood and something uniquely his, balance between opposing forces. Perhaps. But sometimes true artistic breakthrough requires surrendering control entirely. His gaze sharpened, something unreadable passing through eyes that appeared almost silver in the gallery lighting. A dangerous proposition. Art should be dangerous, she replied with conviction. Otherwise, why bother creating it? Charged silence stretched between them, interrupted by the sudden activation of the gallery's security system, lights dimming as electronic locks engaged with soft clicks. What was that? Zephyra moved toward the exit, alarm replacing momentary. Intimacy, evening security protocol. Thorn followed, reaching the door first and trying his palm against the biometric scanner. Nothing happened. System malfunction. It happens occasionally during updates. So we're locked in? Zephyra checked her watch. 9:42 p.m. For how long? Security monitors these protocols remotely. They'll notice eventually. He checked his phone. No signal. The gallery walls are lead-lined to protect the artwork from radiation. The implications settled between them. Alone, locked in together, potentially for hours. Well, she said with forced lightness, at least we're trapped somewhere with comfortable seating and excellent visual entertainment. The unexpected humor drew a genuine smile from Thorn, transforming his features so completely that Zephyra momentarily lost her train of thought. The Frost Titan reputation seemed absurd, with warmth radiating from his expression. They settled on opposite ends of a leather bench, snow beginning to fall against darkened windows, adding to their isolation. From the world beyond, you mentioned your mother taught classical studies, Thorn said after comfortable silence. At Columbia, correct? Yes. Ancient Greek literature was her specialty, hence my unusual name. And your father? Jazz musician. They met when he performed at a university function, complete opposites who somehow fit perfectly. Memories softened. Her voice. They died when I was 8. Car accident during a snowstorm. I'm sorry. His empathy sounded genuine rather than obligatory. My parents died when I was 12. Similar circumstances. The shared experience of early loss created unexpected connection. Zephyra studied his profile. Strong lines softened by ambient lighting, habitual guardedness momentarily lowered. Grandmother raised me after, she offered. She worked multiple jobs to keep our brownstone and put me through school. Mine did the same, though under different financial circumstances. Thorne's expression grew distant. She insisted on normalcy despite family resources, made me work summer jobs, take public transportation, earn privileges. She sounds wise. She was. The past tense registered between them. Cancer. 4 years. Ago. And your brother? Zephyra asked softly, remembering rumors about a younger Ravencroft who had died under unclear circumstances. Thorne's expression shuttered immediately, warmth vanishing behind his mask of controlled composure. We should explore options for contacting security. As she passed a display case, Zephyra's attention caught on a crystal paperweight containing preserved paint splatters suspended in glass. "What's this piece?" she asked, grateful for the redirection. Thorne approached, standing close enough that she felt warmth radiating from him. An experiment in preserving creative moments. The artist captured paint splatter patterns at the exact moment of artistic decision, the millisecond between intention and execution. As she straightened, her elbow accidentally knocked against the display, sending the paperweight teetering. Thorne moved with surprising speed, hand darting out to catch it before it could fall. The sudden movement brought them chest to chest, his arm instinctively steadying her shoulders. For one suspended moment, they stood frozen in near embrace, faces inches apart. Zephyra's breath caught as she found herself close enough to notice. Flecks of darker blue in his irises, to feel the controlled strength in the arm that held her. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though neither moved to restore appropriate distance. No harm done. His voice emerged lower than usual, resonating through the minimal space between them. The gallery lights flickered suddenly, plunging them into momentary darkness before emergency systems activated, bathing the space in soft amber glow. The shift broke whatever spell had momentarily suspended professional boundaries. Thorne stepped back, returning the paperweight to its display with careful precision. "Emergency power," he explained, voice returning to its usual controlled timbre. "The main systems are being reset." He removed his suit jacket and crossed back to where she stood. "Here, the gallery gets cold when environmental controls malfunction." Zephyra accepted the jacket, sliding her arms into sleeves that engulfed her smaller frame. The fabric carried his warmth and scent, creating intimacy more disarming than their physical proximity had been. "You mentioned your tattoo yesterday," she said, seeking safer conversation. "May I ask about it?" With deliberate movement, he extended his right arm and rolled his sleeve higher, revealing a phoenix emerging from stylized flames, its wings extending around his forearm in graceful curves of black and subtle red. "It represents rebirth after destruction," Thorne explained quietly, "a reminder that what burns can also purify." "It's beautiful," Zephyra said truthfully. "When did you get it?" 5 years ago, after circumstances required reinvention. The reference to his broken engagement hung unspoken between them. "Sometimes we need physical reminders of our capacity to survive," she offered, understanding the tattoo's deeper significance. Their eyes met in the amber glow, recognition passing between them, of shared loss, of the talismans people create to move forward from devastation. For a breathless moment, something deeper than professional appreciation connected them across carefully maintained boundaries. The security system suddenly reactivated. a uniformed guard appearing in the doorway. With apologies for the delay. The spell broken, Zephyra removed Thorn's jacket and returned it with murmured thanks. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, the brief contact sending unexpected warmth through her despite the gallery's chill. "I should get home," she said, gathering her notes. "My grandmother will be worried." "Jenkins will ensure you have car service," Thorn replied, professional distance re-established. "Good night, Thorn." She tested the personal address, watching for his reaction. Something warming passed through his expression. Brief, but unmistakable. "Good night, Zephyra." Chapter 3. Gallery of Secrets. The Ravencroft Foundation's annual charity auction transformed the Metropolitan Museum's Temple of Dendur into a showcase of wealth and power. Zephyra adjusted her grandmother's gold cuff bracelet, her only jewelry, against the midnight blue dress that had consumed most of her first special project's paycheck. "You must be our mysterious new curator." An elegant woman in her 50s approached. Silver-streaked dark hair swept into a sophisticated updo. Eleanor Blackwood, Foundation Board. When Thorn personally appoints someone to special projects, speculation naturally follows, especially someone with your unconventional background. Ms. Ellington's background is precisely why I selected her, Eleanor. Thorn materialized beside them, his black tuxedo emphasizing his imposing height. Fresh perspective is invaluable when existing viewpoints become calcified. Eleanor's eyebrow arched. "Always the disruptor, Thorn." She nodded to Zephyra before gliding away. "Calcified viewpoints?" Zephyra questioned once they were alone. "The Foundation Board consists primarily of individuals who inherited their positions alongside their fortunes." A subtle smile touched his lips. "They find merit-based advancement somewhat threatening." 2 weeks had passed since their accidental lockdown. Their subsequent interactions had maintained professional focus, despite the momentary intimacy they'd shared. Yet Zephyra remained acutely aware of him, the subtle scent of his cologne, the unexpected warmth in his voice when discussing artwork that moved him. "The Hunter Meridian piece is attracting considerable attention," he noted, nodding toward a contemporary sculpture. "Because it's extraordinary," Zephyra replied, "or because Hunter Meridian is currently featured in Architectural Digest." His smile widened fractionally at her astute assessment. "Both, unfortunately. The auction committee occasionally prioritizes artist celebrity over artistic merit. Yet you included it in the catalogue. Foundation politics necessitate occasional compromises." He glanced toward board members. "Though I draw the line at featuring mediocre work simply because the artist attended the right schools." A waiter offered champagne. Thorn declined, while Zephyra accepted a single glass, mindful of maintaining professional poise. "You seem uncomfortable," Thorn observed. "I'm more accustomed to museums where people actually discuss the artwork rather than using it as backdrop for social positioning." She sipped her champagne. "Though I'm learning the corporate art world operates differently." Refreshingly cynical for someone so early in her career. Appreciation colored his tone. "Realistic," she corrected. "My grandmother taught me to see things as they are, not as I wish they were." "You've marked several pieces in the catalogue," he noted. "Planning to bid? On my salary?" Zephyra laughed softly. "I'm analyzing which works are overvalued versus which might be underappreciated." "And your conclusion?" She decided honesty served better than caution. "That Lot 17, the untitled abstract from an emerging artist, is the most significant piece here, yet it's buried in the middle of the catalogue with minimal promotion." Surprise and something like pleasure flickered across Thorn's expression. "What makes you say that?" "The technical execution is masterful, but it's the emotional authenticity that distinguishes it. The artist isn't performing for audience or market." She met his gaze directly. "It reminds me of the unsigned painting in your gallery." The comparison clearly startled him, a momentary crack appearing in his composed facade. Before he could respond, the foundation director requested his presence for the auction's commencement. Left alone, Zafira moved toward the artwork she'd referenced, an abstract composition where midnight blues transitioned to warmer tones, marked only by a small, stylized flame in the bottom corner. Captivating, isn't it? Zafira turned to find an arresting blonde woman beside her, Valentina. Renaud, Thorne's former fiancée, now a prominent gallery owner. Very, Zafira agreed neutrally. You must be Thorne's new pet project. Valentina's French-tinged accent softened the words without masking their condescension. The art history ingénue plucked from obscurity. Associate curator, special collections, Zafira corrected pleasantly. Though pet sounds considerably less demanding, Valentina's perfect lips curved in amusement. Refreshing. Most of Thorne's employees dissolve into sycophantic puddles at the mere suggestion of his attention. I find meaningful work more compelling than attention. An admirable perspective. Valentina's gaze returned to the painting. Though this particular work seems to have captured your attention quite thoroughly, it's exceptional. Because of its artistic merit or because you recognize the artist? The question carried subtle trap beneath casual delivery. Zafira considered her response carefully. I appreciate authenticity wherever I find it. As do I. Valentina's smile turned predatory. It's why I've built my gallery's reputation on discovering artists who hide behind corporate facades. The auction proceeded predictably, Hunter Meridian's sculpture commanding excessive price, lesser-known artists achieving respectable results. When Lot 17 appeared, Zafira leaned forward unconsciously. The bidding opened modestly, reflecting the artist's supposed obscurity. To her surprise, active competition immediately developed, quickly exceeding the estimate. Valentina's elegant hand raised repeatedly, determination evident in her expression. From his position near the podium, Thorne watched with unreadable countenance. When the hammer finally fell, the untitled abstract had achieved nearly 10 times its estimated value, purchased by Valentina, whose triumphant smile contained unmistakable satisfaction. Following the auction, Zafira slipped away from the reception. Seeking refuge in the museum's Renaissance wing, she stood before a Botticelli when measured footsteps approached from behind. I thought I might find you here. Thorne's voice carried unexpected gentleness. Social exhaustion. Let's call it strategic withdrawal. She turned to face him. The auction was successful. Financially, yes. Something troubled lingered in his expression, though I question certain outcomes. Valentina's acquisition of Lot 17. His eyes sharpened at her perception. You noticed. It was difficult to miss her determination, or her satisfaction afterward. Zafira hesitated. She approached me during the preview, made interesting implications about artists hiding behind corporate facades. Tension gathered in Thorne's shoulders, his expression cooling. Valentina enjoys creating drama where none exists. Is there history between her and the artist of that painting? When Thorne finally responded, his voice carried careful neutrality. Valentina believes art should be exploited for maximum public impact. The artist believes some expression is private. And you? I believe privacy is valuable precisely because it's increasingly rare. He glanced toward the Botticelli. Renaissance masters understood both public commission and personal expression. His deflection confirmed Zafira's growing suspicions. The unsigned painting, the anonymous work at auction, both shared distinctive elements, pieces of a puzzle she wasn't supposed to assemble. The museum gardens are particularly beautiful this evening, Thorne said suddenly. Would you care to see them before returning to the reception? The invitation surprised her, both its spontaneity and its personal nature transcending their careful professional boundaries. I'd like that. He guided her through less trafficked corridors toward the museum's Renaissance garden, a secluded courtyard where classical sculptures stood among flowering plants. November chill had driven most patrons inside, leaving the space in peaceful solitude illuminated by strategic lighting. "I come here when board meetings become unbearable," Thorne admitted. Something about Renaissance harmony restores perspective. "The ideal of perfect proportion and balance," Zafira nodded, understanding, "though I've always been drawn to the emotion beneath their technical discipline." They paused beside a marble nymph, her face turned skyward in eternal contemplation of unseen stars. Above them, actual stars had begun appearing in the evening sky, visible through the garden's open center. "You have remarkable insight," Thorne said quietly, "not just about art, but the people who create it." "Art reveals what artists try to conceal," she replied. "Every brushstroke is confession." His gaze intensified. "A dangerous perspective. Only for those with something to hide." Their eyes met, challenge implicit in her words. As if responding to unspoken tension, rain suddenly began falling. Light at first, then with increasing urgency. They moved quickly toward a stone pavilion at the garden's edge, seeking shelter as rainfall transformed into downpour. "November storms," Thorne observed, watching rain create silver curtains around their sanctuary. Unpredictable and often intense, Zafira became acutely aware of their isolation, of how the pavilion's intimate dimensions brought them closer than professional boundaries typically allowed. Droplets clung to Thorne's dark hair, his customary perfection momentarily disrupted in ways that made him seem more human, more accessible. "The painting Valentina purchased," she said, courage rising from some unknown source. "You created it, didn't you?" The question hung between them, rain drumming against ancient stone, as if demanding truth. Thorne remained utterly still, only the slight widening of his eyes betraying impact. "What makes you think that?" His voice emerged lower than usual, the same unique tension between control and release, the same technique in transitioning between colors. Zafira took a step closer. The same signature emotion beneath technical discipline. "You see too much." The words carried no accusation, only wonder. Or perhaps others see too little. Lightning flashed, momentarily illuminating his expression, vulnerability replacing carefully maintained composure. In that instant of revelation, some final barrier between them dissolved. Thorne moved toward her with unexpected grace, his hand rising to cradle her cheek with reverent precision. "Do you know how extraordinary you are?" Before she could respond, his lips found hers in a kiss that began with gentle exploration, but quickly deepened as rain intensified around them. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her against the solid warmth of his chest as her hands slid up to tangle in his rain-dampened hair. The kiss contained all the controlled passion she'd identified in his artwork, discipline and surrender, coexisting in perfect balance. His lips moved against hers with masterful restraint that gradually yielded to deeper hunger as her response encouraged abandon. When they finally separated, breathing ragged and hearts racing in synchronized rhythm, Thorne rested his forehead against hers in intimate connection. "I've wanted to do that since you first stood in my gallery discussing Monet," he confessed, voice rough with emotion long suppressed. "Why didn't you?" Zafira asked, fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw. "Because choosing to feel anything means risking everything." His eyes held hers, storm-colored and suddenly transparent. "And I stopped taking emotional risks 5 years ago." Until now, lightning illuminated them again, revealing something like wonder in his expression. "Until you." As thunder echoed through the garden pavilion, their lips met again, not in tentative exploration, but in mutual hunger. The rain created a private world where professional boundaries and past heartbreaks temporarily dissolved, leaving only the electric connection between two people who recognized in each other something both had believed lost. The kiss deepened as Thorne's arms tightened around her, lifting her slightly to eliminate any remaining space between them. Zephyra yielded completely to the sensation, allowing herself to melt against his solid strength as his lips moved from her mouth to trace the sensitive skin beneath her ear. "We should return to the reception," he murmured against her neck, contradicting his words by pressing another kiss to her pulse point. "Should we?" She drew back enough to meet his gaze, challenge and desire mingling in her expression. For answer, Thorne recaptured her lips, passion overtaking caution as the storm intensified. Around their stone sanctuary, in this moment of surrender, the frost titan of Manhattan business legend had finally begun to thaw. Chapter 4. Canvas of Desire, the Botanical Gardens. Gala glittered with Manhattan elite amid exotic blooms and crystalline structures. Zephyra moved through the crowd with newfound confidence, her burgundy gown a calculated risk that set her apart from the sea of predictable black dresses. 1 week had passed since the rain-drenched pavilion kiss, 1 week of professional interactions charged with undercurrents, neither acknowledged openly. Thorne had retreated somewhat, maintaining careful distance in meetings while his eyes conveyed conflicting messages of desire and restraint. Tonight she represented the acquisition initiative independently, Thorne having been delayed by board meetings. She engaged confidently with art collectors and gallery owners, her genuine passion for art refreshing among social climbers. "Your insights on emerging artists are fascinating," remarked Julian Hayworth, renowned gallery owner whose endorsement could launch careers. "Have you considered moving beyond corporate collections to gallery curation?" "As I'm focused on my current position," Zephyra replied diplomatically, though the suggestion intrigued her. "But I believe art should be accessible, beyond traditional collectors." "A revolutionary perspective," Julian smiled. "We should discuss this further, perhaps over dinner next." "Julian, making new connections, I see." Thorne's deep voice interrupted as he materialized beside them, resplendent in a tuxedo that emphasized his powerful frame. Though his tone remained pleasant, something territorial flashed in his eyes, a possessiveness that sent heat curling through Zephyra's veins. "Thorne, didn't expect you tonight." Julian extended his hand. "I was just discussing potential collaboration with your brilliant curator. Ms. Ellington's brilliance is precisely why she's invaluable to Ravencroft." Thorne's hand settled briefly at the small of Zephyra's back, a gesture both protective and claiming. "I trust you're enjoying the exhibition." The subtle dismissal worked. Julian excused himself after exchanging business cards with Zephyra. When they were alone, Thorne's expression softened fractionally. "You look stunning," he said quietly. "That color suits you perfectly." "Thank you." She met his gaze directly. "I wasn't sure you'd make it tonight. The board meeting ended early when I made it clear my presence was required elsewhere." His eyes darkened. "You've attracted considerable attention this evening." "Professional attention," she clarified, though his obvious jealousy sent a thrill through her, not entirely. A muscle ticked in his jaw. "Julian Hayworth isn't known for mentoring without personal expectations. I can handle myself." She matched his intensity. "I've navigated difficult men my entire career. Am I difficult?" The question carried unexpected vulnerability beneath its surface challenge. Zephyra considered him thoughtfully. "You're complex. That's different." Something in her response pleased him. His expression warmed as he gestured toward a doorway partially hidden by tropical foliage. "The conservatory has a private orchid collection, far more impressive than this main exhibition." The invitation's subtext was unmistakable. A moment alone, away from watchful eyes and social constraints. Zephyra hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I'd love to see it." They slipped away from the main gallery, Thorn guiding her through a service corridor that opened into a spectacular glass-domed space. Hundreds of rare orchids created a private Eden, their exotic blooms illuminated by subtle lighting that cast artistic shadows across tropical foliage. "This is breathtaking," Zephyra whispered, genuinely moved by the beauty surrounding them. "The curator opens it only for special guests," Thorn explained, watching her reaction with evident pleasure. "These black orchids are among the rarest in the world. Tropical humidity enveloped them as they moved deeper into the conservatory, the air heavy with botanical perfume and unspoken tension. When they reached a secluded alcove surrounded by cascading orchids, Thorn stopped, turning to face her. "I've been keeping my distance," he admitted, voice lowered despite their isolation, "trying to process what happened at the museum." "Regrets?" Zephyra asked, vulnerability momentarily overcoming her composure. "None." The single word carried absolute certainty. "Only concerns about complications." "You mean Valentina?" "It wasn't a question, partly." His expression darkened. "She's made recovering my artwork her mission since our relationship ended. The painting she purchased at auction was one I created during our engagement, before I discovered her true nature. And your other concern, you." Thorn moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his tall frame. "Your career, your reputation. The professional damage that could result from association with me beyond strictly business parameters. Shouldn't that be my decision to make?" Zephyra challenged, tilting her face up to his. "You don't fully understand the world you've entered." His voice roughened. "Manhattan's elite circles destroy people for entertainment. Someone with your talent deserves recognition based on merit, not gossip about how you achieved position." "I've never needed protection, Thorn." She stepped closer, eliminating the remaining space between them. "Only honesty." Something broke in his careful restraint. His hand rose to cradle her cheek with reverent precision, thumb tracing the curve of her lower lip. "I haven't been honest with myself since the moment you walked into my gallery." Their lips met with none of the tentative exploration of their first kiss, only hunger too long denied. Thorn's arms encircled her waist, drawing her against him. As her hands slid beneath his jacket to feel the heat of his body through fine linen, the kiss deepened as his tongue traced the seam of her lips, seeking and gaining entrance. Zephyra yielded completely, melting against his solid strength as sensations cascaded through her body, his taste, his scent, the controlled power evident in every movement. They moved backward until she felt the cool surface of the conservatory, wall against her shoulders, Thorn's body pressing her gently but insistently against it. His mouth left hers to trace a burning path along her jaw, down the sensitive column of her throat. "I've thought about this every moment since the pavilion," he confessed against her skin, voice rough with desire. "Your taste, your scent, the sound you made when I kissed you. I've thought about more than just kissing," Zephyra admitted boldly, hands sliding up to tangle in his dark hair. A groan rumbled from his chest as his mouth recaptured hers, kiss deepening with renewed intensity. His hand skimmed down her side, over the curve of her hip, gathering burgundy silk as it traveled back upward along her thigh. When his fingers found bare skin above her knee, Zephyra gasped against his mouth, electricity shooting through her veins. Thorn pulled back slightly, stormy eyes asking silent permission to continue. In answer, she guided his hand higher, watching his expression darken with desire as he discovered how completely she wanted him. His thumb traced delicate circles against sensitive skin, each movement drawing soft sounds of pleasure she couldn't suppress. "You're exquisite," he murmured, watching passion transform her features as his touch became more deliberate. "So responsive, so perfect." Zephyra clung to his shoulders, a sensation built within her, each skilled movement of his fingers bringing her closer to edge. When his mouth returned to the sensitive spot beneath her ear, the dual stimulation pushed her toward completion. "Let go for me," Thorn whispered against her skin, voice commanding yet tender. "I want to watch you." The intimate demand broke the last of her restraint. Release claimed her in powerful waves, Thorn's name falling from her lips as pleasure coursed through her body. He held her securely through the aftershocks, his expression reflecting masculine satisfaction and unfamiliar tenderness. As reality gradually returned, Zephyra became aware of their surroundings, the public venue, the risks they'd taken, the line they'd definitively crossed. But regret remained conspicuously absent as she met Thorn's heated gaze. "Come home with me," he said, the request carrying vulnerability beneath its surface command. "Not as employee or associate, as yourself, as the woman who sees past every defense I've constructed." The invitation's significance wasn't lost on her. Thorn Ravencroft, notorious for maintaining absolute privacy, was offering entrance to his most personal space. Before she could respond, a mechanical announcement echoed. Through the conservatory, "The botanical gardens will be closing in 15 minutes. Please proceed to the main exits." Reality intruded on their private sanctuary, reminding them of public obligations and professional considerations temporarily forgotten in passion's haze. "We should return separately," Zephyra suggested reluctantly, smoothing her gown. "Avoid creating immediate gossip." Though disappointment flickered across his features, Thorn nodded with understanding. "You're right." He straightened his tie, composed his expression. "But my invitation stands. I have a counter-proposal." Courage fueled by lingering pleasure emboldened her. "There's somewhere more private than your penthouse, somewhere without associations or interruptions." Interest sharpened his gaze. "Where?" "I've heard you have a cabin in the Adirondacks." She met his eyes directly. "A place where you go to paint when inspiration demands expression." Surprise registered on his face. "How did you—" "You left reference photos on your desk last week." She smiled at his momentary discomfort. "I recognize creative research when I see it." Thorn considered her for a long moment, something significant shifting in his expression. "No one knows about that place. Not business associates, not board members. Then it's perfect." Zephyra reached up to straighten his collar where her fingers had disarranged it. A weekend away from watchful eyes, from expectations and complications. "You understand what you're suggesting?" His voice roughened. "Being alone together, truly alone." "Completely." Her certainty left no room for doubt. "I want to know the man behind both the Frost Titan and the artist, not fragments revealed in stolen moments, but the complete truth of who you are." Thorn's hand captured hers, bringing her palm to his lips in a gesture both courtly and intimate. "Friday evening. I'll send a car." His eyes held promise that sent renewed heat through her body. "Pack for cooler temperatures, and bring nothing that connects you to Ravencroft Industries." "Just me, then," she smiled, already anticipating the freedom such isolation would bring. "Just you," he confirmed, voice dropping to a register that caressed rather than merely communicated. "That's all I want." They separated reluctantly, Zephyra departing first, while Thorn remained among exotic blooms to restore his composure. As she rejoined the gala's concluding moments, perfunctory goodbyes consumed her attention, while her thoughts remained fixed on the promise of Friday evening, of seclusion, revelation, and passion finally unleashed beyond stolen moments in semi-public venues. For the first time since their paths crossed, they would have opportunity to discover each other without constraints of professional boundaries or watchful eyes. The prospect both thrilled and terrified her, Yet beneath both emotions lay absolute certainty that whatever awaited in his private sanctuary would irrevocably transform both their lives. Chapter 5. Natural Palettes. The Adirondack Mountains unfolded in stunning autumn splendor as Thorne's Range Rover navigated the winding road that had long since left paved highways behind. Beside him, Zephyra watched the transformation of urban precision to natural magnificence, a journey that mirrored their own evolution from professional distance to intimate connection. "It's beautiful," she said, as late afternoon sun gilded, turning leaves in shades impossible to replicate with artificial pigments, so different from your Manhattan world. "That's precisely why I come here." Thorne's expression softened as he guided the vehicle around a curve, revealing a pristine lake nestled among forest-covered slopes. "Some creations can't emerge in environments built by human ambition." The cabin materialized among ancient pines, not the rustic structure Zephyra had imagined, but a sophisticated blend of natural materials and architectural vision. Floor-to-ceiling windows captured spectacular views, while local stone and reclaimed timber honored the surrounding landscape. Inside, the space defied expectation once again. No stark minimalism echoing his corporate penthouse, but warm textures and handcrafted furniture arranged for comfort rather than impression. Most striking was the abundance of art, not priceless acquisitions, but personal creations in various stages of completion, canvases stacked against walls and arranged on easels throughout the open living area. "Your work," Zephyra whispered, moving instinctively toward the nearest painting. A forest scene where light penetrated dense canopy in almost spiritual radiance. "My sanctuary from expectations." Thorne watched her reactions carefully as she moved between his creations. No one else has seen these. Not gallery directors, not acquisition specialists. No one. The significance of his admission settled between them. Trust extended beyond physical desire into vulnerable creative territory he'd protected absolutely from outside judgment. "They're extraordinary," she said truthfully, studying his technique with professional appreciation and personal wonder. "So different from the controlled abstracts in your collection. Here, you've surrendered completely to creative impulse. Because here no one expects Thorne Ravencroft, CEO." He moved to stand beside her. "Here, I'm simply the boy who found salvation in brushstrokes when words failed after losing his parents." Zephyra turned to study him, this alternate version of the man Manhattan knew only as the Frost Titan. In casual clothing, surrounded by honest creative expression, he appeared both younger and more substantial simultaneously. No carefully constructed facade separating internal reality from external perception. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said softly, "for trusting me with this part of yourself." His response came not in words, but in the gentle cradle of his hand against her cheek, in the reverent precision with which his lips found hers. Unlike their previous encounters, charged with urgency against possibility of interruption, this kiss unfolded with deliberate appreciation. No need to rush when weekends stretched before them, with nothing but private wilderness surrounding their sanctuary. When they separated, Thorne rested his forehead against hers in intimate connection. "I've arranged everything you might need, but first, I'd like to show you something." He led her through French doors onto a wraparound deck where comfortable seating faced western exposure. Below, the lake mirrored surrounding mountains and approaching sunset in perfect replication. "The best canvas nature provides," he explained, guiding her to a corner where easels stood prepared, with blank surface awaiting inspiration. "I come here when barriers between technical skill and emotional expression become insurmountable elsewhere." "Is that why you stopped showing your work publicly?" Zephyra asked. "Why you hide your paintings among acquisitions instead of claiming them openly?" Pain flickered briefly across his features. Valentina made art another transaction, something to be exploited for social advancement rather than appreciated for authentic expression. His voice roughened with old hurt. When I discovered her betrayal with my brother, she mocked my paintings as charming amateur efforts before the people whose opinion I'd valued. So you buried that part of yourself. Understanding dawned with aching clarity, protected your creativity by denying its existence, until you walked into my gallery and instantly recognized truth beneath technical execution. Wonder colored his tone. Until someone finally saw beyond the facade I'd constructed so carefully. The confession hung between them. Evening light, transforming his features as shadows retreated from more than just the physical landscape. When Zafira reached for him, something fundamental had shifted in their connection, desire tempered with deeper recognition of wounds they both carried from different circumstances. Their kiss deepened as Thorn gathered her against him, her arms encircling his neck as admission of vulnerability ignited renewed passion. Without breaking contact, he lifted her effortlessly, carrying her back through French doors toward the primary bedroom with its panoramic views of wilderness beyond. He laid her gently on handcrafted bed, separating only long enough to remove his shirt before stretching beside her. Flickering firelight from the adjoining hearth cast their skin in golden hues as exploration replaced urgency, his fingers tracing reverent patterns along her collarbone, her hands mapping the strong contours of his chest. "You're beautiful," he murmured, watching her reaction as buttons yielded beneath his skilled fingers, exposing smooth skin to appreciated gaze. "More exquisite than anything I've created or acquired." When her blouse joined his shirt on cabin floor, Thorn's attention shifted to newly revealed territory, lips replacing fingers in worshipful journey across sensitive skin. Zafira gasped as his mouth found the delicate curve where neck met shoulder, then traveled lower to trace the swell of her breast above lace barrier. "I want to paint you," he confessed against her skin. "Capture this exact moment when desire transforms your expression." "Later," she whispered, fingers tangling in his dark hair to guide his mouth where she needed it most. He complied willingly, tongue tracing lace edge before skillfully removing the barrier. When his lips closed around sensitive peak, Zafira arched beneath him, pleasure cascading through nerve endings as his tongue circled and teased with deliberate precision. Remaining clothing disappeared beneath mutual exploration until nothing separated them. No fabric, no pretense, no carefully maintained professional distance. Thorn positioned himself above her, strong arms creating space for her to observe the powerful body he typically concealed beneath tailored suits. The phoenix tattoo she'd glimpsed in fragments now revealed its complete form, extending from forearm across bicep and onto his chest, powerful wings spread in eternal flight above his heart. Zafira traced the intricate design, understanding more deeply the symbolism of destruction and rebirth etched permanently into his skin. "Are you certain?" Thorn asked, restraint evident in every tense muscle despite desire darkening his eyes. To stormy grey, for answer, Zafira drew him down to her, legs parting in invitation as their bodies aligned perfectly. When he entered her with careful control, both gasped at the sensation of completion, long imagined, finally realized. They remained motionless briefly, adjusting to overwhelming connection before Thorn began moving with deliberate rhythm. Each thrust built pleasure systematically, his gaze never leaving her face as reactions played across her features. When her nails scored his back in wordless encouragement, his control fractured visibly, pace increasing as mutual need overrode practiced restraint. "Look at me," he commanded softly, a sensation built toward inevitable crescendo. "I want to see you." Zafira complied, amber eyes meeting storm grey as pleasure crested within her. Release claimed them simultaneously. her body clenching around him as his own completion followed, his name falling from her lips as intimate affirmation of connection beyond physical joining. Afterward, they remained entwined as evening transformed into full darkness outside panoramic windows. Thorn's fingers traced idle patterns along her spine, while her head rested against his chest, heartbeat gradually slowing beneath her ear. "I never expected you," he admitted into comfortable silence. "Never imagined someone who could make me want to dismantle walls I've spent 5 years constructing." "Is that what we're doing here?" Zephyra raised herself on one elbow to study his expression in firelight. "Dismantling walls?" Something vulnerable flickered across his features. "I don't know any other way to describe allowing someone to see both aspects of my life, the corporate structure that provides control and the creative expression that demands surrender." She understood the significance of his admission that bringing her to this private sanctuary represented commitment beyond physical desire, into territory he'd protected absolutely since Valentina's betrayal and his brother's death. "Thank you for trusting me with both," she said simply, palm coming to rest above his heart. His response was to draw her back into his embrace, lips finding hers with renewed hunger that suggested their exploration had only begun. As night deepened, around the isolated cabin, they discovered each other with increasing intimacy, his mouth mapping territories across her body until pleasure claimed her repeatedly, her hands and lips learning what brought him to the edge of control and beyond. Near dawn, with first light beginning to illuminate mountain peaks visible from their bed, Thorn propped himself above her once more. This coupling carried different quality, not the careful control of their first joining or the abandoned passion of subsequent encounters, but something that transcended physical satisfaction into emotional territory neither had anticipated. When release claimed them again, something unuttered hung between them, words too significant to voice after mere days of connection, yet increasingly difficult to deny as barriers continued falling between their separate worlds. Morning found them. In the cabin's studio space, Zephyra draped casually across a chaise, positioned to capture perfect northern light. Wearing only Thorn's discarded shirt, she watched him work at the easel, his concentration absolute as charcoal captured her likeness with confident strokes. "Hold that expression," he directed, eyes moving between her face and developing image. "That exact combination of satisfaction and curiosity. Is that what you see?" she asked, amused by his artistic focus after nights spent discovering every aspect of her body. Among other things, not appropriate for artistic interpretation. The rare teasing quality in his voice delighted her. Though perhaps for later exploration, the promise sent pleasant anticipation through her still sensitive body. They had only begun discovering each other, physically, emotionally, creatively, within the sanctuary of his private world. Whatever awaited their return to Manhattan's watchful scrutiny seemed distant and inconsequential compared to truth they'd found in wilderness isolation, where neither needed to maintain carefully constructed facades. As autumn sunlight filtered through studio windows, highlighting different facets of the man sketching her with such focused appreciation, Zephyra recognized transformation occurring within herself as well, protective barriers she'd maintained since childhood loss gradually yielding to possibility. That some connections transcended rational caution. Neither had spoken words of love, yet something equally profound was developing between stolen moments of passion and quiet periods of creative communion. In this sanctuary, where Thorn Ravencroft allowed himself authentic expression beyond corporate constraints, Zephyra found herself surrendering to emotional vulnerability she'd guarded carefully throughout her ambitious climb from Brooklyn brownstone to Manhattan's elite circles. "What are you thinking?" Thorn asked, sensitive to subtle shifts in her expression. "That some masterpieces aren't painted on canvas," she replied truthfully. They're created between people brave enough to risk destruction for possibility of something extraordinary. Understanding dawned in his eyes, recognition that their weekend sanctuary had begun, transforming them both in ways neither had anticipated when first meeting in corporate gallery amid priceless acquisitions. Whatever developed between them now transcended professional connection or physical attraction into territory both had avoided since experiencing profound loss. The irony wasn't lost on either that their most honest communication occurred not through carefully chosen words, but through artistic expression and physical connection where pretense became impossible and authentic emotion found voice beyond verbal declaration. As Thorne set aside his charcoal to join her on the chaise, gathering her against him with reverent possession that spoke volumes beyond casual affair, both recognized that returning to Manhattan would test whatever was developing between them in this isolated sanctuary, yet neither suggested retreating behind safer boundaries previously maintained. Some risks, once taken, cannot be unmade. Some connections, once formed, refuse containment within rational limitations. Against all caution and past experience, they had begun creating something neither had believed possible after their respective losses. Whether their emerging masterpiece would ultimately bring healing or heartbreak remained uncertain as mountain. Wilderness kept their secrets safe from judging eyes and calculating adversaries. For this weekend at least, the Frost Titan and his unexpected muse had found paradise in surrendering control. Neither had relinquished since learning life's harshest lessons years before their paths unexpectedly converged. Chapter 6. Hidden Compositions. Morning. Mist clung to the surface of the lake as Zephyra followed a narrow path through pine-scented forest. She'd woken alone, discovering a note on Thorne's pillow directing her to explore while he prepared breakfast. Freedom to wander his sanctuary felt significant, further evidence of trust extending beyond their physical connection. The trail opened to a small clearing where a weathered bench faced perfect lake vistas as she settled onto smooth wood worn by years of contemplation. Zephyra noticed a leather-bound sketchbook partially concealed beneath the seat. Curiosity overcame hesitation. Opening the book revealed not landscapes but portraits, page after page, of a young man with features reminiscent of Thorne's, but softer, more vulnerable. The sketches captured changing expressions across what appeared to be years, boyish laughter, transforming gradually to troubled contemplation in later images. "You found my memorial." Thorne's voice startled her. He stood at the clearing's edge, two steaming mugs in hand, expression unreadable, as he observed her with his brother's likeness open on her lap. "I'm sorry," she began, closing the book. "I shouldn't have. No apologies necessary." He joined her on the bench, offering coffee prepared exactly as she preferred. "I left it there hoping you might find it." The deliberate vulnerability of his admission caught her off guard. "Tell me about him." Thorne's gaze fixed on distant mountains as memories surfaced. "Dominic was everything I wasn't. Spontaneous, emotionally expressive, naturally charming. 7 years younger, but sometimes seemed wiser about things that mattered. You were close. Until Valentina positioned herself between us. Pain etched lines around his eyes. She recognized his vulnerability, addiction issues I'd helped him overcome, insecurities about living in my shadow. She exploited every weakness. With surgical precision, understanding dawned with sickening clarity. To hurt you. To destroy what mattered most when I delayed our engagement after discovering financial discrepancies. His voice roughened. Finding them together was calculated theater, ensuring maximum impact when I walked into my own home at precisely the moment she'd orchestrated. That's monstrous. Zephyra's hand covered his, where it rested on the sketchbook. The real monstrosity was afterward. Shadows darkened his expression. When Dominic realized he'd been manipulated, his recovery collapsed. I tried everything: rehabilitation facilities, therapy, constant support, but guilt consumed him completely. The accident wasn't an accident, she concluded softly. The official report called it alcohol-related single-vehicle crash. Bitterness edged his words. The reality was despair made automotive. The tragedy's magnitude settled between them. Not just Valentina's betrayal, but the devastating aftermath that had transformed Thorne from passionate artist to controlled businessman. Emotional walls erected against possibility of similar devastation. This is why you stopped exhibiting your art, Zephyra realized. Why you hide your paintings among acquisitions instead of claiming them. Art requires vulnerability. After Dominic's death, vulnerability seemed like luxury I couldn't afford. His fingers threaded with hers, until you walked into my gallery and somehow saw past every defense I'd constructed. The confession hung between them. Morning sun burning away mist as it illuminated both landscape and emotional terrain previously kept in shadows. When Thorne turned to face her, his expression held openness she'd never witnessed in Manhattan. Surroundings. Thank you for listening to his story, he said simply, for allowing him to exist between us without pretending the pain doesn't matter. Zephyra responded not with words, but with gentle touch, palm cradling his cheek as she leaned forward to press her lips to his. The kiss held different quality than their passionate encounters, comfort and understanding transcending physical. Desire into emotional intimacy neither had anticipated when first surrendering to attraction. They returned to the cabin hand in hand, silence comfortable rather than strained, as morning light transformed the main living space into artist's dream of perfect illumination. After setting their mugs aside, Thorne drew her towards central fireplace, where embers still glowed from previous evening. "I want to show you something else," he said, reaching for small carved box on the mantel. From within, he extracted old photograph, a family portrait showing younger Thorne with parents and small boy who would grow into the subject of clearing sketches. This was our last vacation together before the accident. The significance of sharing tangible memory wasn't lost on Zephyra. She studied the image, noting familiar determination already evident in teenage Thorne's expression, alongside protective arm around his little brother's shoulders. "You were his anchor," she observed, understanding more fully the devastating impact of losing someone he'd spent lifetime protecting. "I tried to be." Regret shadowed his voice. "Failed when it mattered most. You can't save someone determined to punish themselves." Wisdom learned from her own losses infused her response. "Trust me, I've tried." Something in her tone caught his attention. "Your parents' accident?" "My father was driving." Memories seldom shared surfaced unexpectedly. "He'd been arguing with my mother about his touring schedule. Witnesses said he was distracted, emotional. The storm provided convenient explanation that spared family additional pain. Understanding passed between them, shared experience of loss, complicated by circumstances beyond simple tragedy. Without words, Thorne gathered her against him, comfort offered and received simultaneously as morning sun warmed them through panoramic windows. When his lips found hers again, desire rekindled from banked embers rather than new flame, depth and appreciation replacing initial discovery with something more substantial. Their movements carried unhurried deliberation as clothing yielded to exploring hands and appreciative gazes. Here in daylight, with perfect illumination, revealing every expression, their joining transcended physical satisfaction. Thorne worshipped her body with artist's appreciation, fingers tracing contours with reverent precision, lips following trails, his hands discovered until pleasure built beyond her capacity to remain silent. When he finally positioned himself above her, firelight Painting golden highlights across his powerful body, Zephyra reached to trace the phoenix, extending across his chest. "Rebirth requires fire," she whispered, understanding the tattoo's significance with new clarity, "and courage to embrace the flames." His eyes held hers as he entered her with careful control that gradually yielded to mutual hunger as her body welcomed him completely. Their rhythm built with intimate knowledge gained from previous exploration, each knowing precisely how to bring the other maximum pleasure, when to intensify and when to extend sensation. When release finally claimed them both, something unspoken yet increasingly undeniable hung in air between them. Emotional connection transcending physical, joining into territory neither had expected to discover. Afterward, tangled together on soft rug before dying fire, Thorn traced patterns along her spine while comfortable silence enveloped them. Outside, afternoon sun painted forest in golden hues, visible through window wall designed to maximize natural beauty. "I have an idea," he said suddenly, pressing brief kiss to her shoulder before rising with fluid grace. "Get dressed. I want to try something." Curious, Zephyra followed his suggestion, donning casual clothing before joining him in studio space where blank canvas awaited on central easel. To her surprise, Thorn had prepared palette of vibrant colors alongside traditional oils he typically favored. "I want to paint with you," he explained, noting her puzzled expression. "Not as subject or observer, as co-creator." The proposal's significance struck her immediately. Invitation to participate in creative process he'd guarded jealously since Valentina's mockery and Dominic's death. Suggesting shared artistic expression demonstrated trust beyond physical intimacy or emotional confession. "I'm not nearly as skilled as you," she protested mildly. "That's why this will work." His smile held genuine warmth that transformed his features completely. "Your spontaneity balancing my technical discipline, together creating something neither would produce alone." Zephyra stepped toward the canvas, accepting brush he offered with ceremonial gravity the moment deserved. "Where do we begin?" "With freedom." Thorn loaded his own brush with cobalt blue. No expectations, no judgment, pure expression without concern for outcome. What emerged over subsequent hours defied conventional artistic categories, his technical precision intertwining with her intuitive color choices, creating composition that somehow captured essence of their developing connection. Bold strokes, suggesting strength intersected with delicate details, adding unexpected depth, neither dominating the collaborative process. Paint transferred between them as creative intensity occasionally yielded to playful moments. His finger, tracing cerulean streak across her cheek, her retaliating with crimson handprint against his chest that perfectly framed his phoenix tattoo. These interludes inevitably led to passionate kisses that threatened to abandon artistic endeavor entirely for more primal creation. Somehow the painting reached completion as afternoon light shifted toward evening hues. They stood back together, observing their joint creation with genuine wonder at what had emerged between them. Not just on canvas, but within emotional landscape, neither had expected to navigate again after respective losses. "It's remarkable," Thorn said finally, arm circling her waist as they contemplated their work. "Neither entirely yours nor mine, but something new entirely." "Like us," Zephyra replied without thinking, then tensed slightly at implication of permanence neither had voiced directly. Instead of retreating from the suggestion, Thorn turned her gently to face him, paint-stained fingers cradling her face with incongruous delicacy. "Exactly like us." His eyes held unfamiliar vulnerability as they searched hers. Something unexpected, yet increasingly essential. The admission approached territory neither had entered since their first meeting. Acknowledgement that whatever developed between them transcended casual affair into something significant enough to justify risk. Before Zephyra could formulate response, thunder rumbled in distance, signaling approaching storm. "Perfect timing," Thorn smiled, nodding toward darkening sky visible through studio windows. Nature providing dramatic accompaniment. They moved to cabin's main deck, watching lightning illuminate distant mountains as storm approached across pristine lake. Wind carried scent of rain and electricity as temperature dropped perceptibly. "Should we go inside?" Zephyra asked as first heavy drops began falling around them. "Not yet." Thorn's arm tightened around her waist. "I want to watch it arrive." The metaphor wasn't lost on her. Storm approaching their carefully constructed sanctuary mirrored inevitable return to Manhattan reality, awaiting beyond weekend seclusion. As rain intensity increased, Thorn finally guided her inside, closing door against elements, while leaving curtains open to witness nature's dramatic display. Lightning illuminated his features as he turned toward her, water droplets clinging to his dark hair and dampening his shirt where rain had found them on the deck. Something untamed emerged in his expression, control yielding to elemental force, similar to storm raging outside. Their coming together carried urgency. Previous encounters had evolved beyond primitive need overwhelming civilized restraint as clothing disappeared beneath desperate hands. Thorn lifted her effortlessly, her legs wrapping around his waist. As he carried her to nearest wall, strength evident in every controlled movement. When he entered her with single powerful thrust, Zephyra cried out, pleasure bordering exquisite pain, a sensation overwhelmed rational thought. Their pace matched storm's intensity, thunder punctuating rhythmic joining as lightning periodically illuminated their entwined forms. "Mine," Thorn growled against her neck, possession evident in every movement as he claimed her completely. "Tell me you're mine." "Yours," she gasped, as pleasure built toward inevitable crescendo. "As you're mine." The mutual declaration pushed them simultaneously over edge, release claiming them with unprecedented intensity as storm reached peak fury outside cabin walls. For eternal moments, nothing existed beyond their connection. Physical joining transcending into emotional territory neither had expected to navigate when first surrendering to attraction. Later, tangled in bedsheets with rain still drumming. Against windows, Thorn traced idle patterns across her bare shoulder. "We return tomorrow," he said finally, reluctance evident in his tone. Back to reality. Zephyra nestled closer against his solid warmth. "This is reality too." His fingers tilted her chin upward, ensuring their eyes met. "What we've found here, what we've created together, no matter what awaits in Manhattan." The promise hung between them as rain gradually subsided outside, storm passing as all storms eventually must. Yet within cabin walls, something had fundamentally transformed during their seclusion, protective barriers carefully constructed against emotional vulnerability, systematically dismantled through shared creativity and physical connection. Whether what they'd built could survive transplantation to Manhattan's harsher climate remained uncertain as sleep claimed them in tangled embrace. What couldn't be questioned was authenticity of what had developed between stolen moments of passion and quiet periods of artistic communion. In Wilderness Sanctuary, where Thorn Ravencroft allowed himself genuine expression beyond corporate constraints, they had begun creating emotional masterpiece neither had believed possible after learning life's harshest lessons. Whatever challenges awaited their return to watchful scrutiny could not erase transformation already accomplished within cabin walls, where truth had finally emerged from carefully maintained illusions. Chapter 7. Storms Gathering. Manhattan's steel and glass towers glittered in morning sunshine as Thorn's private elevator ascended to the executive floor. 3 days had passed since their return from Adirondack seclusion. 3 days of professional distance maintained during working hours, while nights belonged to passionate reunion in his penthouse sanctuary. The Miyazaki acquisition papers need your signature before noon, Thorne's executive assistant announced as they stepped into his office suite. And the board requested your presence at tomorrow's emergency session regarding the quarterly projections. Schedule it for 11, he replied, attention already focused on documents awaiting review. And ensure Ms. Ellington receives complete access to the Japanese collection documentation. The assistant's expression remained professionally neutral, despite obvious curiosity about Zephyr's increasingly prominent role within special projects. Rumors had begun circulating throughout Ravencroft Tower, speculation about the beautiful curator's meteoric rise from marketing associate to positions typically requiring decades of experience. Alone in his office, Thorne allowed momentary indulgence. In memories from their weekend, Zephyr's expression as pleasure transformed her features, her insightful observations about his artwork, their bodies moving together in perfect synchronicity beneath storm-illuminated skies. Emotions long dormant had reawakened with unprecedented intensity, creating connection that transcended physical desire into territory he'd sworn never to revisit after devastating loss. His intercom interrupted pleasant recollection. Mr. Ravencroft, Miss Rayno is requesting entrance. She doesn't have an appointment, but insists it's urgent regarding the Kyoto exhibition. Tension immediately replaced relaxation. Send her in. Valentina Rayno entered with characteristic dramatic flair, designer, heels clicking against marble flooring as custom perfume announced her presence before visual confirmation. Her blonde hair fell in artful waves around features that had once captivated Manhattan society, crimson lips curved in smile that never reached calculating eyes. Thorne, darling. Her voice carried French-tinged musicality that had once charmed him completely. You're looking remarkably well, almost rejuvenated. What do you want, Valentina? He remained seated, deliberately withholding courtesies she expected, so hostile. She positioned herself precisely where morning light would highlight her still beautiful features. When I'm offering professional courtesy isn't in your repertoire, he replied coldly. State your business or leave. Her smile tightened fractionally. Very well. I thought you should know your little curator has applied for the Matsuhara Fellowship at my gallery. Quite ambitious for someone so inexperienced. The information caught him completely off guard, though years of business negotiation prevented visible reaction. Your point being? Simply that mentor-protégé relationships can become complicated when career advancement intertwines with personal considerations. She traced manicured fingertip along edge of his desk. The art world values independence, after all. If you're implying Miss Ellington's professional capabilities are anything less than exceptional, I'm implying nothing, Valentina interrupted smoothly. Merely observing that talented young women often find themselves navigating difficult currents between patronage and genuine recognition. The threat beneath polite observation wasn't subtle. Implication that Zephyr's relationship with him could become professional liability rather than advantage. Before Thorne could formulate appropriately devastating response, his phone chimed with security alert. Glancing at the screen, he found himself facing undeniable evidence of their Adirondack weekend, photographs showing Zephyr entering his private cabin, their embrace on the deck, intimate moments captured through windows by telephoto lens. The sender remained unidentified, but Valentina's triumphant expression confirmed his suspicions. Unfortunate timing, she remarked with false sympathy. Such images circulating among board members might raise uncomfortable questions about corporate policy regarding fraternization. You had me followed. Cold fury infused each word as he rose from his chair. Invaded private property to obtain images through criminal trespass. Not personally, darling. She waved dismissive hand. Though one does maintain useful connections in security industry, professional necessity in gallery business, protecting valuable acquisitions requires certain specialized services. Get out. His voice dropped to dangerous register that had earned his Frost Titan reputation. Before I contact authorities regarding your admission of criminal conspiracy. Valentina's expression revealed momentary uncertainty before composure reasserted itself. Consider my visit professional courtesy, Thorn. The board receives these photos tomorrow unless alternative arrangements can be negotiated. Blackmail now. You've descended further than I imagined possible. I prefer to call it mutually beneficial exchange. She moved toward the door with practiced elegance. The anonymous painting I purchased at auction. Acknowledge it publicly as yours. Agree to exhibition at my gallery. And these unfortunate images remain private. After she departed, Thorn remained motionless beside his desk. Cold calculation, replacing emotional reaction as years of business strategy provided framework for addressing emerging threat. Valentina's appearance signaled approaching storm that could potentially destroy what he'd begun building with Zafira. Professional reputation and personal connection simultaneously targeted by woman who'd already claimed his brother's life. Through calculated manipulation, his intercom interrupted strategic planning. Sir, Miss Ellington is here regarding the Matsuhara documentation. Send her in. He quickly closed the incriminating photos on his screen, composing features into professional mask as door opened. Zafira entered carrying catalog documentation. Professionalism perfectly maintained, despite intimate knowledge of what lay beneath his tailored suit. Only when the door closed behind her did her expression soften into personal connection they'd cultivated during Adirondack seclusion. The Japanese scrolls are exceptional, she began, moving toward his desk with catalogue. Particularly the Edo period landscapes. Why didn't you tell me about the Matsuhara Fellowship? Thorn interrupted, question emerging more sharply than intended. Surprise flickered across her features, followed quickly by wariness. I was going to discuss it this evening. How did you hear about it? Valentina just left my office. He maintained, careful distance between them, despite desire to eliminate physical separation. She made quite clear her involvement in the selection process. That explains the timing of my interview schedule arriving this morning. Understanding dawned in her expression. She's using it as leverage somehow. Thorn debated revealing full extent of Valentina's machinations, weighing honesty against protective instinct that had reasserted itself since returning to Manhattan. She implied your connection to me could compromise your professional standing. And you're concerned she's right, not question, but observation, accompanied by perceptive study of his expression. I'm concerned that everything you've worked for could be undermined by association with me. He moved toward windows overlooking city sprawl, creating physical distance that mirrored emotional withdrawal. Your talent deserves recognition based on merit, not speculation about how opportunities were secured. That's not your decision to make. Steel entered her voice, the same strength that had first attracted him in corporate gallery. I determine what risks are acceptable regarding my career. Valentina specializes in destruction, Zafira. Pain edged his tone as memories surfaced. She identified Dominic's vulnerabilities with surgical precision before exploiting them completely. Now she's targeting whatever exists between us with similar calculation. What exactly does exist between us, Thorn? The direct question pierced carefully maintained ambiguity they'd preserved since returning from Wilderness Sanctuary. Because, from where I stand, it seems we're navigating two completely different relationships depending on which side of your office door we occupy. The observation struck with uncomfortable accuracy. Since returning to Manhattan, he'd maintained careful separation between professional interaction during office hours and passionate intimacy within penthouse walls. Compartmentalization that had protected him since Dominic's death suddenly revealed as potential threat to genuine connection. Before he could formulate response-balancing honesty against protective caution, his phone chimed with incoming message. Glancing down, he found board secretary's notification. Emergency meeting moved forward to 3 p.m. today. Attendance mandatory. V. Renault presenting acquisition proposal. I need to handle something, he said, professional mask reasserting itself. We'll continue this discussion later, hurt flashed briefly across Zephyr's expression before composure replaced vulnerability. Of course, the documentation can wait. As she moved toward the door, Thorne recognized critical juncture their relationship had reached. Decision point between retreating behind familiar emotional fortifications or risking vulnerability that had previously led to devastating loss. Before she could exit, he closed distance between them with decisive steps. Zephyra. His voice softened as he touched her arm, halting her departure. What exists between us is more significant than I've allowed myself to acknowledge. Since Dominic died. That's precisely why Valentina perceives opportunity for destruction. The honest admission hung between them as metropolitan backdrop continued functioning beyond office windows. Taxis navigating crowded streets, pedestrians hurrying between. Appointments, commerce proceeding with mechanical precision, while personal drama unfolded in executive suite above it all. Then stop giving her power by keeping us compartmentalized, Zephyra challenged gently. Stop protecting me from threats I'm perfectly capable of recognizing. The wisdom in her perspective penetrated defensive barriers he'd maintained since returning to corporate reality. With deliberate intent, Thorne eliminated remaining distance between them, hand rising to cradle her cheek with uncharacteristic public demonstration of personal connection. You're right, he acknowledged, thumb tracing curve of her lower lip. Separation creates vulnerability rather than protection. Her smile illuminated features with warmth that had been conspicuously absent during their professional interaction since returning from Adirondack Sanctuary. Partners face threats together, Thorne, not through divided strategy. The reminder cemented resolution forming since Valentina's unwelcome appearance. Without further hesitation, he lowered his mouth to Zephyra's, kiss-carrying declaration more explicit than words could convey. Professional boundaries dissolved completely as her arms circled his neck, bodies pressing together with familiar heat despite corporate setting previously deemed inappropriate for personal demonstration. When they separated, Thorne kept her close with encircled arms. Valentina obtained photographs of us at the cabin, he admitted, finally sharing complete information. She's threatening to distribute them to the board unless I publicly acknowledge my artwork and agree to exhibition at her gallery. Understanding, rather than panic, registered in Zephyra's expression. So that's her leverage. Embarrass you professionally, while simultaneously implying I've slept my way into position. Precisely. Appreciation for her quick analysis replaced protective concern. She's scheduled presentation at today's emergency board meeting, presumably to blindside us with maximum audience. Instead of retreating from looming confrontation, determination sparked in amber eyes that had first captured his attention among priceless acquisitions. Then we attend together, she stated with calm certainty. Present unified response rather than divided targets. The strategy's elegant simplicity struck him forcefully. Valentina's manipulative power derived specifically from creating isolation between connected individuals, exploiting perceived vulnerabilities through calculated division. Appearing together would fundamentally undermine her tactical approach. It's potentially risky for your professional standing, he cautioned, needing her fully informed about potential consequences. Some risks are worth taking. Her palm came to rest against his chest, directly above Phoenix tattoo concealed beneath tailored suit. Some fires are worth embracing. The reference to their shared symbolic understanding of destruction and rebirth cemented his decision. With deliberate movement, Thorn reached for his phone, sending directive to executive assistant that would fundamentally alter both professional and personal landscapes. Ensure Ms. Ellington receives immediate invitation to today's emergency board meeting. Seating arrangement adjusted accordingly. Across Manhattan, in elegantly appointed gallery space bearing her name, Valentina Renault studied in large photographs showing intimate embrace between Thorn Ravencroft and his curator protégé. Satisfaction curved perfectly painted lips as she mentally rehearsed presentation designed to simultaneously secure valuable artistic acquisition while destroying relationship that threatened her carefully constructed narrative. The anonymous painting she'd purchased at auction, Thorn's most emotionally revealing work created during their engagement, would finally receive proper exploitation through exhibition she'd orchestrated specifically to reclaim influence within Manhattan's social hierarchy. That destroying his newly emerging relationship provided additional satisfaction merely confirmed perfection of her strategy. Unaware that targets had chosen unified defense rather than divided vulnerability, she selected specific images for maximum impact during board presentation, blissfully confident in approach that had successfully destroyed Dominic Ravencroft through similar exploitation of perceived weakness. Storm clouds gathered literally and metaphorically above Manhattan's skyline. As afternoon approached, meteorological systems mirroring human drama unfolding within glass and steel monuments to ambition and power. Within Ravencroft Tower's executive sanctum, battle lines were being drawn that would determine not just corporate leadership, but emotional landscapes long maintained through careful isolation. For first time since devastating loss had transformed passionate artist into controlled businessman, Thorn Ravencroft had chosen vulnerability over protection, connection over isolation, potential joy over guaranteed safety. Whether decision would lead to redemption or destruction remained uncertain as Zephyr's hand found his beneath conference table, fingers intertwining in silent affirmation of unified approach against calculated manipulation. As Valentina entered, boardroom with characteristic dramatic timing, satisfaction evident in predatory smile directed toward head of table. Her expression faltered momentarily upon discovering unexpected alteration to anticipated scenario, target and presumed leverage. Seated together, professional facade replaced by obvious personal connection, as Thorn's hand openly covered Zephyr's upon polished mahogany surface. The storm had officially arrived, but those it targeted had chosen to weather it together rather than seek individual shelter behind emotional barriers that had previously ensured isolation rather than protection. Whether their unified approach would prove sufficient against Valentina's calculated malice remained to be demonstrated as board members settled into their chairs, unaware of personal drama about to intersect with corporate governance. Chapter 8. Love's Betrayal. The boardroom crackled with tension as Valentina approached the presentation screen, her confidence faltering upon discovering Thorn and Zephyra seated together. Board members shifted uncomfortably, sensing the underlying currents. "Esteemed directors," Valentina began, I've requested this meeting to discuss an exceptional acquisition opportunity. She revealed the painting from the auction, midnight blues transitioning toward warmer tones through techniques that balanced emotion with technical discipline. This masterpiece represents significant artistic achievement currently attributed to an anonymous creator, she stated, fixing her gaze on Thorne. Its true provenance deserves recognition. You've identified the artist? Richardson asked. Indeed. This exceptional work was created by none other than Thorne Ravencroft himself. Murmurs rippled through the directors as attention shifted toward their CEO. Beneath the table, Zephira's hand tightened around his in silent support. More significantly, Valentina continued, the painting represents a period when artistic integrity guided his decisions before corporate ambition consumed authentic expression. She activated her presentation remote, displaying photographs of Thorne's cabin, followed by images of Thorne and Zephira embracing, their intimacy unmistakable, and perhaps an explanation regarding his improper relationship with a subordinate employee whose meteoric rise coincides with their personal connection. Before shock could solidify into judgment, Thorne rose smoothly. Thank you for that dramatic presentation, Valentina. Your theatrical timing remains impeccable. With deliberate movement, he guided Zephira to stand beside him, their united front, directly challenging Valentina's divisive strategy. Directors, I'll address these matters directly, his voice carried authority. Yes, I created the artwork during a significant personal period. And yes, Ms. Ellington and I have developed a relationship that transcends professional parameters. Company policy regarding fraternization is quite explicit, Richardson noted. Which is why Ms. Ellington's position was transferred to Foundation Oversight last week, reporting directly to the board, Thorne explained. Documentation awaits your signatures, predating this attempted embarrassment. Valentina's confidence visibly faltered. The painting remains my intellectual property despite your purchase of the physical canvas, Thorne stated firmly. Created during our engagement under explicit agreement regarding privacy. You broke that agreement when you ended our engagement, she countered desperately. I ended our engagement upon discovering your embezzlement and manipulation of my brother. Thorne distributed folders containing detailed documentation, organizational restructuring, ethics compliance verification, and formal disclosure of their relationship with recusal procedures. With desperate determination, Valentina played her final card. Perhaps the board would be interested in knowing Miss Ellington's grandmother worked for the Ravencroft family before their convenient romance developed. Zephira stiffened beside Thorne, this revelation clearly unexpected to both of them. My grandmother worked for many Manhattan families decades ago, Zephira confirmed, though this seems irrelevant to the current discussion. Unless your relationship was cultivated specifically because of this connection, Valentina suggested sweetly. Actually, Ms. Reno, your theory contains a fundamental chronological flaw. All heads turned toward the doorway where Iris Ellington stood with remarkable poise. I worked as housekeeper for the Ravencroft family from 1985 through 1992, she explained, primarily caring for young Thorne after his parents' deaths until a suitable governess could be secured. During those years, I observed extraordinary artistic talent in a grieving child who found expression through painting when words proved inadequate, Iris continued, her gaze meeting Thorne's with warm recognition. Talent, his grandfather, unfortunately, considered an impractical distraction. Neither my granddaughter nor Mr. Ravencroft was aware of this connection, Iris concluded. As I left Ravencroft employment long before Zephira was born. This grows increasingly inappropriate for boardroom discussion, Richardson concluded firmly. Ms. Reynaud, your acquisition proposal appears fundamentally personal rather than professional. You'll regret this public humiliation, Valentina promised Thorne as directors departed. The exhibition proceeds regardless. Exhibit whatever you legally purchased, he replied with composure. The provenance remains speculative without my confirmation. Later that evening, in Iris Ellington's Brooklyn brownstone, cosmic connections emerged through shared stories bridging decades of separation. You showed remarkable talent even then, Iris recalled, serving homemade pie. Stubborn determination to capture exactly what you envisioned. I remember you sneaking art supplies when my grandfather demanded focus on business fundamentals, Thorne acknowledged, though I never connected those memories with Zephyr's grandmother. Life creates remarkable patterns when we allow authentic connections, Iris observed wisely. As evening progressed, something fundamental shifted between Thorne and Zephyr. Their relationship, now anchored in deeper historical context, neither had anticipated. When they departed for his penthouse, their coming together transcended previous passionate encounters. Each touch carried deliberate appreciation, each kiss containing acknowledgement of cosmic forces that had connected their lives. "I love you," he whispered against her neck as release approached, words previously unspoken despite their growing emotional connection, beyond reason or caution or protective isolation. The declaration pushed them simultaneously over the edge, pleasure cresting in perfect synchronicity as emotional barriers dissolved completely. "I love you too," she responded simply, certainty replacing previous caution. Despite complications and potential consequences, in the aftermath of Valentina's attempted destruction, they had discovered a deeper foundation than passionate attraction, a historical connection predating their conscious awareness, suggesting patterns beyond explanation, guiding seemingly random intersections of human experience. The phoenix had risen from deliberate destruction, just as ancient symbolism promised. From calculated manipulation intended to separate them, had emerged a stronger connection, anchored in historical patterns neither had consciously recognized until revelation emerged through attempted betrayal. Chapter 9. Storm's Surrender. December arrived with unexpected ferocity, transforming Manhattan into a crystalline wonderland. 3 weeks had passed since Valentina's failed boardroom manipulation, weeks filled with organizational restructuring and deepening personal connection between Thorne and Zephyr. "The Matsuhara Fellowship interview is scheduled for tomorrow," Zephyr informed Thorne as they reviewed acquisition documentation in his penthouse. "Valentina remains on the selection committee despite everything. Are you certain you want to proceed?" Concern colored his question. "The interview could become unnecessarily confrontational." "I won't abandon professional opportunities because of her tactics," she replied with determination. "The fellowship represents significant career advancement." Outside the penthouse windows, snow began falling with increasing intensity. Within the glass-walled sanctuary, their professional discussion yielded to more personal connection as documents were set aside in favor of wine shared before the panoramic winter tableau. "Her exhibition opening coincides with the fellowship announcement," Thorne observed, fingers tracing patterns along Zephyr's arm. "Deliberately scheduled for maximum impact. Does that bother you?" She studied his expression. "Having your work displayed without acknowledgement?" "Less than I anticipated," he admitted after thoughtful consideration. "Though her materials will undoubtedly include insinuations about the anonymous creator's identity, without confirmation, they remain merely insinuations," Zephyr provided perspective. "The painting speaks its own truth, regardless of context." Their passion unfolded with unhurried deliberation against the backdrop of intensifying snowfall. When Thorne carried her toward the bedroom with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the snow-transformed cityscape, Zephyr wrapped herself, completely around his solid strength. Their joining carried reverence, established through emotional connection, physical pleasure enhanced by psychological intimacy. When release claimed them simultaneously, declarations of love had transcended novelty to become comfortable affirmation. The storm reports suggest significant accumulation, Thorne noted afterward, fingers tracing patterns along her bare shoulder. Perhaps we should consider contingency plans for your interview. Before she could respond, his phone chimed with an emergency alert. Citywide weather emergency declared, he reported. Public transportation suspended starting midnight, non-emergency. Vehicles prohibited after 2 a.m. The announcement transformed theoretical discussion into practical necessity, Zephyr's Brooklyn residence effectively inaccessible. Though she'd spent numerous nights in his penthouse, an official weather emergency created a different context. Morning arrived with a transformed cityscape visible through floor-to-ceiling windows, familiar Manhattan skyline rendered almost unrecognizable beneath a heavy snow blanket. Your interview has been rescheduled, Thorne informed Zephyra as she emerged from the shower. The gallery remains closed through emergency declarations. Their snow-enforced seclusion created an unexpectedly liberating environment. Wrapped in borrowed clothing significantly oversized for her smaller frame, Zephyra explored penthouse spaces previously encountered only briefly. "You've never shown me your studio here," she observed curiously. "Does it exist, or was the cabin your only creative space?" After momentary hesitation, Thorne guided her toward a previously unopened door. The studio contained stark contrast between abandoned past and recent activity, dust-covered equipment alongside newly used brushes, and a central easel containing a work in progress unmistakably featuring Zephyra's profile. "I started painting again the night after you first recognized my work," Thorne admitted vulnerably. "You made me question whether isolation truly protected anything worth preserving." Without words, Zephyra approached the unfinished canvas, studying the emerging composition with professional appreciation enhanced by personal connection. "It's extraordinary," she said simply. "You've integrated completely different techniques. While maintaining your distinctive perspective, you influenced more than just my emotional landscape," he acknowledged, hands resting lightly on her shoulders. Artistic expression evolved alongside personal reconnection. Snow continued falling as morning transitioned toward afternoon. When Thorne's phone interrupted their private communion, his expression shifted immediately toward concern upon recognizing Richardson's number. After concluding the call, Thorne revealed unexpected news. Valentina's gallery experienced significant roof damage from snow accumulation, including water damage to the exhibition space containing my painting. "Was the artwork affected?" Zephyra asked, recognizing the implications. "Extensively, according to initial reports," his expression contained conflicted emotion, regret regarding artistic destruction alongside recognition of strategic implications. "I'm sorry," she offered sincerely. "Regardless of circumstances, losing creative work carries genuine loss." Their weather-enforced seclusion continued throughout the day and subsequent night, creating extended domestic intimacy neither had experienced. Previously within their relationship, morning brought moderated snowfall, though accumulated depths prevented normal metropolitan functioning. As they shared breakfast, Thorne received a message that shifted his expression significantly. Without prompting, he extended the device toward Zephyra. The message contained a forwarded email from the Matsuhara Fellowship Committee announcing her immediate selection for the prestigious position, decision accelerated through unusual circumstances rather than delayed as expected. "Congratulations," Thorne offered sincerely, "though the timing seems suspiciously convenient." "Valentina wouldn't voluntarily approve my selection," Zephyra observed practically. Something else influenced the committee decision. Additional context from Richardson clarified. Valentina had resigned from the selection committee following the gallery disaster, claiming personal emergency requiring immediate attention to insurance claims and property restoration. The fellowship location presents a potential complication we haven't discussed, Zafira noted carefully, addressing the 6-month residency in Kyoto that would create geographical separation. Rather than immediately responding, Thorne presented architectural plans for a Kyoto property he'd acquired during previous business expansion. The renovation completed last quarter, he explained, originally intended as a corporate retreat, though readily adaptable for private residence during extended professional assignments. Are you suggesting a bi-continental relationship? Zafira asked directly, needing explicit clarification. I'm suggesting whatever arrangement maintains both your professional development and our personal connection. He balanced respectful independence against obvious preference for continued proximity. My corporate responsibilities allow flexible location management. The offer represented significant evolution from a man who had maintained rigid isolation since devastating personal loss, willingness to adjust established patterns to accommodate their relationship. 6 months could become permanent separation if we allow geographical distance to create emotional division, Zafira observed wisely, or establish a stronger foundation through deliberate commitment. I prefer the second possibility, Thorne acknowledged directly, though I respect your independence completely. When their lips met in affirmation of mutual commitment, the kiss contained promise, transcending passionate intensity. Physical connection that followed carried deliberate appreciation rather than desperate confirmation. Bodies joining with established familiarity, enhanced by psychological certainty. As natural storms subsided beyond penthouse windows, the emotional tempest that had characterized their early connection similarly transformed into settled certainty. The Phoenix had completed transformation from protective isolation toward authentic integration, artistic expression and personal connection acknowledged as essential aspects of identity rather than vulnerability requiring rigid protection. Chapter 10. Hearts Unbound. Valentina Reynaud's gallery opening transformed Manhattan's artistic elite into a choreographed tableau of social ambition. Despite the damaged centerpiece having been removed following the roof collapse, promotional materials still heavily implied Thorne's authorship through carefully worded suggestions about corporate titans with secret artistic passions. When Thorne and Zafira entered together, a palpable ripple of surprise passed through the gathered crowd. His tailored suit complemented her elegant gold dress, but what truly captured attention was their deliberate unity, his hand resting possessively at the small of her back, her confident poise beside Manhattan's most notorious bachelor. Valentina froze momentarily before social training reasserted itself. With practiced grace, she approached the couple, crimson smile firmly in place. "How unexpected," she purred. "I thought you despised public exhibitions, Thorne." "I despise manipulation," he corrected smoothly. "Authentic artistic appreciation deserves support, despite unfortunate curatorial choices." Zafira stepped forward. "Congratulations on the Matsuhara Fellowship announcement. I was pleased to accept the position." Valentina's expression revealed momentary confusion before understanding dawned. "How fortunate the committee reached a decision without my continued participation." "Quite fortunate," Thorne agreed. "Merit occasionally triumphs over politics, despite best efforts to the contrary." As they moved through the exhibition, whispers followed their progress. When they paused before one of the remaining paintings, Richardson appeared beside them. "Bold statement, attending together," the board chairman observed. "Authenticity occasionally." Requires boldness, Thorn replied, his hand finding Zephyr's with deliberate intent, in both art and life. The fellowship requires extended residence in Kyoto. Have you considered implications for your arrangement? Thoroughly, Zephyra answered. Professional advancement and personal connection aren't mutually exclusive with proper commitment. Besides, Thorn added, some connections transcend geographical separation. Thorn guided Zephyra toward a small podium where Valentina had begun addressing the gathering, highlighting the anonymous creator's unique perspective bridging corporate precision with artistic vulnerability. With perfect timing, Thorn stepped forward, interrupting mid-sentence. Perhaps the artist himself might provide more accurate context. Collective gasps rippled through the crowd as understanding dawned. Without waiting for Valentina's response, he approached the podium with calm authority. The damaged centerpiece was indeed my creation, he acknowledged. Painted during a period of personal transition when authentic expression provided necessary outlet for emotions words couldn't adequately capture. The admission stunned the gathering into silence. At the gallery's edge, Zephyra watched with pride as he finally integrated the compartmentalized aspects of his identity. Art requires vulnerability, Thorn continued, gaze finding hers across the crowded space. As does genuine human connection. Both involve risk that protective isolation cannot justify despite perceived safety. I've recently rediscovered an essential truth, he concluded, silver eyes never leaving Zephyra's amber ones. That artistic expression and emotional connection require the same fundamental courage, willingness to risk destruction for possibility, of creation. As he stepped away from the podium, applause erupted, spontaneous recognition of vulnerability rarely displayed within Manhattan's calculated social ecosystem. Without hesitation, Thorn crossed directly to Zephyra, taking both her hands in his. "Thank you," he said simply, "for seeing complete truth when I'd forgotten it existed." Their kiss, gentle yet possessive, tender yet claiming, occurred before. Manhattan's elite without pretense or calculation. The public declaration, completed transformation from isolated existence toward authentic connection. Valentina watched from the gallery's edge, triumph transformed to defeat through unexpected reversal. Her calculated exposure had inadvertently catalyzed the complete integration she'd specifically attempted to prevent. As the evening concluded, Thorn guided Zephyra toward the exit. Outside, he turned to face her directly, expression containing certainty that had replaced previous caution. "The Kyoto residence awaits whenever the fellowship begins," he said. "Though I've been considering alternative possibilities worth presenting before geographical separation becomes an immediate concern." From his pocket emerged a small velvet box, whose significance required no explanation. When opened, it revealed not a conventional diamond, but a distinctive creation featuring a phoenix crafted from platinum and fire opals, wings extending protectively around a central amber stone matching Zephyra's eyes. Partnership transcending professional designations or geographical considerations, he proposed, with characteristic directness softened by evident vulnerability. If such arrangement appeals beyond immediate circumstances. Yes, Zephyra answered without hesitation, certainty replacing her previous caution. Though Valentina will undoubtedly claim strategic advancement motivated my acceptance, let her claim whatever narrative provides necessary comfort, Thorn replied as the ring slipped onto her finger. Reality remains independent from manipulated perception. Their kiss sealed commitment established through mutual recognition against considerable obstacles. Corporate titan and ambitious curator, transcending professional boundaries through authentic connection, neither had anticipated when first meeting. As midnight approached, they returned to the penthouse sanctuary, Their lovemaking carried newfound certainty, physical passion enhanced by emotional commitment, publicly declared rather than privately maintained. When release claimed them simultaneously, declarations of love had transcended novelty to become comfortable affirmation of reality. Later Thorn traced the ring adorning Zephyr's finger, phoenix wings catching ambient light with subtle fire that epitomized the transformation they'd experienced together. From professional recognition to personal commitment in remarkably compressed time frame, he observed with rare humor. Perhaps efficiency extends beyond corporate strategy. Some connections exist beyond conventional timelines, she replied. Wisely, recognition merely acknowledges what already exists beneath conscious awareness. The Frost Titan had surrendered final defenses, Phoenix rising from protective isolation toward authentic integration, acknowledging both creative expression and emotional connection as essential rather than vulnerable. "I love you," he whispered. As dawn approached, certainty having replaced previous caution, beyond reason or protection or calculated risk assessment. "I love you too," she responded simply, completion rather than revelation in a mutual declaration they'd established through progressive surrender of protective barriers. Their hearts, once guarded against potential pain through rigidly maintained defenses, had finally discovered freedom through voluntary surrender rather than protective isolation. Unbound at last through courage neither had anticipated finding when first connecting through artistic recognition among priceless acquisitions that paled against the relationship they'd created together.